We're about to hit a new year, and you know what that means? We're about to hit a new month. And every month we run down the most interesting games that are gonna hit. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the top 7 new games of January 2021. Starting out at number 7, and this is just something that I think could be potentially an amazing game. It's The Medium, which is a psychological horror game that actually has your character existing in 2 worlds at a time. Generally, you won't be spending your time controlling the character in both worlds, but a lot of the time you will. And that, I think, is perhaps one of the more interesting aspects of it. Like, it certainly won't be the first version of a game in which you exist in 2 different worlds, but I like the idea that they've done with the split screen to make it so that in certain areas of the game you can complete tasks in one world and it might affect the other world and either impede or help your progress in both. The developers Bloober Team are probably best known for Layers of Fear, which came out back in 2016, but they actually had the idea for this game way back in 2012, and it just wasn't as possible given the fact they needed to be able to render 2 worlds at once with a certain amount of detail back in the era of the PlayStation 3. In fact, it was originally announced for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Wii U way back when. I'm excited they were able to survive as a company long enough to try this on hardware that could handle it, and I think that it's actually going to be a really neat game. Also, it's got music from one of the original composers of Silent Hill, which also apparently has a lot of influence over this game, including the way that they're doing the camera angles. The Medium is hitting Windows and Xbox Series X on January 28th. At number 6 is Encodia, which bills itself as having the sweetness and creativity of a Studio Ghibli game in a Blade Runner style setting. Essentially, we're talking about a point-and-click adventure game that takes place in Neo-Berlin in the year 2062. The story centers around a 9-year-old orphan and her robot guardian Sam 53, and follows Tina, the orphan, finding out that her father left her a mystery and mission. This game lists among its influences Monkey Island, but it also has a pretty distinctive, very cartoony, but not like overly flattened art style. Also, I think it's particularly funny how the vehicles that I've seen in footage of the game just look like family cars from the 1980s. This is one of those games where it's highly dependent on the story. Point-and-click adventure games are always pretty much that. But I do think there's a lot of potential here, and I definitely like the world they've created. Encodia releases on the 26th of January. At number 5 is Cyber Shadow. Let me just go ahead and say how excited and interested I am in this game. I'm a huge fan of the old school ninja games like Ninja Gaiden, Shinobi, and the like, and in truth, it's a genre that sort of moved to 3D and kind of became nothing like it was way back in the day. This is kind of a harkening back to that. I don't know how many people are familiar with that who are watching this. I'm sure there's a few of you older gamers who probably remember those games quite fondly, but I think this is great because people who liked Shovel Knight might be very interested in this, because this is the first game that is going to be published by Yacht Club that they didn't develop as part of an initiative to kind of push some interesting titles that take these old school genres and develop it a bit. That is exactly what this is. It is along the lines of a Ninja Gaiden, of a Shinobi, but it also looks as though it does some work on the pacing, adds a nice robust move set, and sets it in a sort of post-apocalyptic mechanized world. You yourself are a cyborg ninja. The world is apparently overrun by synthetic life forms, and apparently some familiar gameplay elements are present from, like I said, Ninja Gaiden, Shinobi, but also there's some elements of Mega Man and Castlevania in there as well. I am, of course, very interested in this game. It looks really, really good. It is coming specifically to Nintendo Switch first on January 26th, but we'll also see it out on other platforms in the following months. At number 4 is King Arthur Knight's Tale, which bills itself as a combination between turn-based tactical games and traditional character-centric RPGs. We've obviously seen games like this. The Fire Emblem series is very much oriented towards the traditional character-centric RPG with the turn-based tactical strategy type battle system. But this truly bears very little in resemblance to Fire Emblem, at least in content and aesthetic. This game looks to retell a lot of Arthurian mythology as a kind of dark fantasy. Also, King Arthur is the ultimate target. The Lady of the Lake tells you, Mordred, that you have to go end King Arthur, and that in doing so, you'll become the savior of Avalon. I do think we're going to see a large amount of kind of XCOM-like gameplay, but contextualized with a lot of choices and character-driven story sequences. Again, stuff that kind of feels like Fire Emblem, but at the same time is nothing aesthetically like Fire Emblem, and probably content-wise also nothing like Fire Emblem. You're going to be building up Camelot. You're going to be recruiting Knights of the Round Table. There's up to 30 of them that you can recruit. And I think overall, it has the potential to be a really interesting game. King Arthur Knight's Tale is landing on the PC January 12th. At number 3 is Stronghold Warlords, a real-time strategy game in which you will be building up a castle. You'll be taking command of Mongol hordes attempting to build up castles and economies, as well as defend yourself from various threats. You'll also be recruiting and commanding other warlords, which you can put to work doing various things like assisting you in attacks to even shoring up your industry. On top of that, they award you different perks. You can upgrade them. It looks fairly interesting. There are 31 different campaign missions, but there's also a free build mode, skirmishes, and a multiplayer mode. So in terms of 3rd century BC China, this is the castle sim experience you've been waiting for, if indeed that's something that interests you. For me, it is, but it also is highly dependent on exactly how this stuff plays out. I am interested particularly in exactly what the multiplayer mode is. The game itself looks pretty interesting, but is the multiplayer mode slower? Is it faster? Is it something that works? This is stuff that we're obviously not going to know until Stronghold Warlords lands on PC on January 26th. At number 2 is Everspace 2, which is kind of a looter space shooter. It's a single-player game based on exploration and item gathering, with a lot of RPG elements, trading, and of course, mining. There is also an actual story involved in this game, which is, as far as I'm concerned, a really big plus, because as much as I do like all of those elements in a game, they can become very repetitive if there is no actual end in sight. So the idea that you might actually follow along a narrative and find some sort of closure at the end, I mean, it's a plus. And there are a lot of games that do just go on forever, especially in space where, well, the universe goes on forever. Now, this is a really colorful, pretty game that looks to have some pretty good combat. There is currently a demo available on Steam if you're interested in trying it. I was able to spend a little bit of time. I particularly enjoy the way these ships handle and the visual style. Honestly, there is a lot to this game. I think there's more than it might sound like there is, on account there are a ton of spaceship exploration, loot gathering games out there. This looks like it might be more. Of course, that takes time to figure out, and again, you can't really know for sure based on a demo, but I think we're in for something that's pretty good. Everspace 2 is hitting early access sometime in January. And finally, at number 1 is Hitman 3, the third and final installment of the World of Assassination trilogy, a plotline that has been going on for a while now, starting with the episodic Hitman 1, which was eventually released as a full game back in 2016, and continued in 2018 with Hitman 2. Listen, if you like those two games, you're probably going to end up liking this game. It looks like a continuation of them, although they promise it's going to be slightly darker and quote-unquote more mature. Now, I don't know what that really means in the Hitman world. Hitman has been very silly while dark and mature for a long time, and I find it hard to believe that it's not silly, although they did characterize it as more serious. We'll see. They have 6 new sandbox worlds, including a Dubai map, which should be particularly interesting, as they've been kind of using that to promote the game. They've actually removed multiplayer, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm kind of fine with just being able to import maps, progress, etc. into this game and play it on my own. I didn't really do a lot of multiplayer on Hitman 2, and I'm kind of just interested in where things go. And of course, more of the sandbox gameplay we all love that we've seen develop from this particular Hitman series, which has really, in my opinion, been phenomenal. I'm looking forward for the wrap-up. It's hitting on PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, Series X, Stadia, and Nintendo Switch on January 20th. That pretty much does it for this month. What did you think? What are you going to play? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first, of course, is a subscription. Click subscribe. Do not forget to enable all notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.